What if the greatest mind that ever lived came from nothing, no wealth, no pedigree, and a world determined to ignore him? Born in 1452 on a dusty Tuscan hillside, Leonardo da Vinci entered life as an illegitimate child, barred from university and whispered about in church aisles. Yet from that silence he forged a roar that still echoes through jet engines, surgical robots, and every art museum on Earth. He painted a smile the whole planet chased, sketched helicopters before man could dream of flight, and dissected corpses under candlelight to map the mysteries of life itself. This is not a lesson in art history. It is a master class in unstoppable curiosity, in the relentless drive required to turn rejection into revolution. If you have ever felt underestimated or trapped by circumstance, stay with Leonardo, because he didn't wait for permission to matter. He built the future one obsession at a time, and his blueprint is waiting in these pages for anyone bold enough to use it. Leonardo's earliest memories were not of tutors or libraries, but of rivers carving patterns through rock and birds, slicing equations across the sky where neighbors saw farmland. He saw physics. At 10, he was sketching the spiral symmetry of sunflower seeds. At 12, the swirl of storm clouds above the Arno Valley. The village priest called his questions blasphemy, yet the boy kept asking. Learning never exhausts the mind. He would later write, and every sunrise he proved it. With no formal schooling, Leonardo made nature his university and experience his textbook, proving that genius is not awarded by institutions but claimed by obsession. At 14, he walked into Florence, a city ablaze with Renaissance fever. Apprentice benches overflowed, but Leonardo stare-sharp, alert, as if cataloging every photon landed him a coveted spot with the master Andrea del Verrocchio. Days were filled with pigment and chisels, nights with anatomy studies performed in secret. One evening, Verrocchio, exhausted, asked his new pupil to finish an angel in a grand religious text. At dawn, the master discovered brushstrokes so luminous he swore he'd never paint again. Rumor or not, Florence buzzed. A prodigy had arrived. Leonardo's perfectionism wasn't vanity, it was devotion. Art is never finished, only abandoned. He refused to abandon anything. But canvas could not contain him. His notebooks of 9,000 pages we still possess. Perhaps 3 times that lost swirl eye, with mirrored handwriting and mechanical dreams. Armored tanks, parachutes, gear-driven clocks, self-propelled carts. Mirror writing slowed his hand just enough for clarity. Thoughts crystallized. Lines flowed backward as easily as forward. This was no hobbyist doodling. It was an operating system for a mind running 6 windows at once. Painter, sculptor, engineer, architect, anatomist, philosopher. In an age that demanded specialization, Leonardo was a multidimensional rebellion. Florence praised his angels, but politics beckoned. Duke Ludovico Sforza of Milan needed war machines, entertainers, urban planners. Leonardo arrived carrying a silver lyre he had fashioned in the likeness of a horse Esco, because why merely travel when you could perform symphonies upon arrival? He promised Sforza bridges, canals, and siege weapons that would break enemy lines without a single cannonball. A classic Renaissance resume pop musician. Paul Miracle Worker, he got the job. For 17 years, Milan became his laboratory. Frescoes in castles, theatrical spectacles with gears and pulleys, mechanical lions that opened their chests to spill lilies at royal feet. But the notebooks are the true treasure of this period. Detailed cross-sections of the human skull, studies of light bending through water, designs for a giant crossbow that could fling stones the size of boulders. He was not dabbling, he was mapping the universe. Between commissions, he spent on hours in morgues, sawing through bone to trace veins, nerves, and muscles forbidden to scholars but irresistible to him. He peeled back eyelids to study the lens, weighed hearts to understand circulation, cataloged the structures of the brain centuries before MRI machines. Once you have tasted flight, he wrote, You will forever walk the earth with your eyes. He was talking about wings of wood and canvas. Yes, but it's also about ideas. Once the mind discovers possibility, it cannot crawl back into convention. In 1503, Leonardo accepted a modest portrait job. Lisa Gherardini, wife of a Florentine merchant. What should have been a few months' work became a 16-year meditation. He layered translucent glazes so fine they defied detection until 21st century lasers revealed them. He carried the canvas everywhere, fussing over the corners, refining her half-smile until it contained an entire philosophy of ambiguity. Why keep it? Because the Mona Lisa wasn't a paycheck. It was a question he hadn't finished answering. X-rays now show 3 earlier versions underneath proof that even masterpieces are born messy. That genius, while the portrait traveled in his luggage, Europe erupted in wars and plagues. Patrons vanished, projects collapsed. Leonardo drifted to Rome, where popes preferred Michelangelo's frescoes to his machines. Yet even as doors closed, notebooks thickened. He sketched variable speed transmissions and giant canals to rewrote rivers. His diary laments aged, taking his hands. Yet the handwriting never slowed. I've been impressed with the urgency of doing. Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Failure to launch never stopped him from building the path. By 1516, frail and weary, Leonardo accepted an invitation from King Francis I of France. The king provided rooms at the Chateau du Clos, plus a salary generous enough that the aging master needed no new clients. Here, between gardens and gentle Loire breezes, he organized, refined, and taught. He sketched plans for a palace city, reviewed anatomy portfolios for young surgeons, described a device to grind concave mirrors for telescopes that would not exist until Even in final chapters, curiosity wrote the plot. On May 2nd, 1519, he died with the king at his bedside. He left no children, few completed paintings, but a trove of diagrams the world needed 5 centuries to decode. Jet turbines, CAT scans, diving equipment, automatic reels, modern patents echo his ink. And that smile hovering behind bulletproof glass still funds entire wings of the Louvre. Historians count 7,200 surviving pages. Scholars suspect 20,000 more lost to time. Impact ISNT measured by applause in your lifetime, but by how loudly the future calls your name. So what can the 21st century dreamer steal from Leonardo? First, carry a notebook everywhere. Treat each question like a seed that just might feed civilizations. Second, cross-train your mind. Study code. If you paint, biology if you sculpt, music if you engineer. Innovation lives at the borders. Third, iterate in public. Perfection is a myth. Progress is a daily choice. Leonardo's greatest works, The Last Supper, the Mona Lisa, the flying machines began as scribbles, mistakes, and false starts. They became legend because he kept returning to them. If you feel unqualified, remember that universities locked their doors to him. If you feel trapped by society's labels, remember he was stamped bastard at birth. If you fear ridicule, remember priests scorned him for cutting bodies open. Yet he pressed on, guided by a question bigger than any opponent. How does everything work? Curiosity became courage. Discipline became destiny. Now it's your turn. Take the restless, half-formed vision pacing your mind and chase it past midnight. Defy categories. Be inconveniently passionate. Draw wings on the ordinary. Then build the hinges that let them move. 500 years from now, someone may leaf through your digital footprints the way we pore over Leonardo. Notebooks astonished at how one relentless soul changed the trajectory of possibility. People of accomplishment rarely sat back and let things happen to them. They went out and happened to things. Leonardo da Vinci wrote those words long before electric light. Yet they still illuminate every entrepreneur, artist, and scientist who refuses to wait for permission. Don't wait! Go out and happen to the world.